Hi everyone, welcome to the lesson on direct and inverse proportion. So in this lesson, we will be looking at how to solve problems on direct and inverse proportion. Okay, so the knowledge organizer for this topic, it shows you a few graphs, and when something is in directly proportion to each other, as one variable increases, the other one increases at a constant ratio. Inverse proportion, that means when one thing increases, the other one decreases. Okay, and the keywords for this lesson, we've got direct, inverse, proportion, and graphs. And hopefully by the end of the lesson, you can answer this question on the knowledge organizer. Okay, we're going to start off with this simple example. It says A and B are in direct proportion. And we're given some values for A and B, and there are some values missing for A and B, and we need to find these values. Okay, now if you look at A, now 5 going into 10, what happened in that case? Because they're in direct proportion, so we can see that 5 times by 2, that gives us a 10. Okay, so that means 12 times by 2 will give us a value for W. So 12 times by 2 is 24, and W equals 24. And then 45 divided by 2. Okay, that is 22.5. So X equals 22.5. And then Y would be 30. And then Z would be 36 divided by 2, which is 18. Now, if you notice here, okay, so it's times by 2 from going from A to B. Now, this is something that we call a constant. Now, constant in direct and inverse proportion can be written as K. So in this case, the constant was 2. Because to go from A, we need to multiply by 2 to get the value for B. So B would equal 2A. So whatever the value for A is, it will have to be timed by 2. But this is a key bit here. So we always look for the constant in direct and inverse proportion problems. Okay, we can look at this example. It says A is directly proportional to B. When A is 7, B is 28. And find the value of B when A is 5. So we have not been given a constant in this question. So that's something that we need to find for us to answer this part of the question, okay? So we start with writing A is directly proportional to B. Now this is a proportion sign in maths. Now we can remove that sign and put an equal sign, but we have to put the constant in because there's always a constant linking together what A and B is. So it'll be KB. And now substituting these values in, A and B. So A is 7 and B is 28. So because it's like these are invisible time signs there. So K times by 28. So K would be, so dividing by 28 on both sides, 7 divided by 28, and K is a quarter, okay? So now we can substitute the value for K into our formula. So A equals 1/4 B, okay? So that makes sense because if you look at the value for A was 7 and B is 28, and A is a quarter of B in this case. So now we're ready to answer our question. It says find the value of B when A is 5. So we substitute 5 into there, and a quarter times by B. So B would be in this case 5 divided by a quarter. And so again, writing B, not K. Okay, so B equals, so how many quarters go into 5? And that is 20. So again, I've written a K down when it should be B. Okay, so B is 20. Okay, so here is one question for you to try. Pause the video, have a go, and then check the solution. Okay, so here is the answer for this question, and we start with E is proportional to F, and then we can substitute the values in for E and for F, and find what constant is, which is 1/12, and then we complete our formula by substituting the value for K, and then answer the last part of this question. So substitute what E is, and then rearrange the formula to find the value for F. Okay, so I've shown you a non-calculator method here, but if it's a calculator paper, please always use a calculator just to make sure that you don't make any silly mistake on that. Okay, so moving on to inverse proportion, and it says y is inversely proportional to x, and when y is 15, x is a 4, and find the value of y when x is 12. So it's very similar to what we did in previous examples, and we start off with writing y is inversely proportional. So inverse mean 1/x. So now we remove the proportional sign, and we can write equals and k times by 1/x, which is basically k/x. Okay, so this is the difference. So this is inverse. So when we have a fraction, so k divided by x, and direct proportion was when we had y equals kx. So there's a difference between writing the formulas. And then it says when y equals 15 and x is 4, so substitute the values in. So 15 and k divided by 4, and we can find what k is, and this time we're going to times both sides by 4. So 15 times by 4 is 60, and we can substitute this into this formula. So y equals 60/x. So now we can do this question. It says find the value of y when x is 12. So y equals 60 divided by 12, and y equals 5. Okay, so that is the answer for this question. Okay, so this question is for you to try, and pause the video, have a go, and then check your solution. Okay, so here is the answer for this question. So we start off by writing C is inversely proportional to D. So inverse proportion, so it's this bit here, so 1/D, or you can put the constant into the next part of the question, and just directly put C equals k/D, and then put the values in. C is a 3, D is a 8, and find the value for k, and then substitute this value into the formula. And now you're ready to do the last part of this question and find the value of c when d is 2. So 24 divided by 2, and c is 12 as an answer. Okay, so now we move on to questions with squares and square roots in direct and inverse proportion. It says g is directly proportional to the square root of h, and when g is 18, h is 16, and find the possible values of h when g is 2. So we start off the question exactly the same way. So try to link these two variables together. So g is directly proportional to the square root of h, so not forgetting the root sign, and then g equals the constant times by root h. Now substitute the values in, and we got g is 18 and h is 16, so k times by root 16, and 18 equals k times by 4, and then k equals 18 divided by 4. So I'm just going to leave this as a simplified fraction because I want to do this in a non-calculator way. So now substitute the values and complete this formula. So it says G equals 9 over 2 square root of H. And now we can answer this question. It says find the value of H when G is 2. So when G is 2, so we put the value in and 9 over 2 and square root of H. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 9 over 2, 9 over 2. So it's going to be 2 divided by 9 over 2 equals square root of H. Okay, so now 2 divided by 9 over 2, we can do 2 times by 2 over 9 and make that into a fraction. That is 4 over 9. So 4 over 9 equals the square root of H. Okay, so now when you want to remove this square root, we have to square both sides. Okay, so squaring both sides, we have 16 over 81. So that's what H equals. Okay, so one question for you to try, and pause the video, have a go, and come back and check the solution. Okay, so here is the solution for this question, and you should have got x equals 4 as an answer. So we start off the process with the same method, and so we got a formula here, x equals k over square root of y, because it said square root in the question and it was inverse proportion, so it's k over root y. And we substitute the values in x equals 12 and y equals 9, and that gave us k equals 36, and then we can substitute that into the formula and then use the values given in this last part of the question to find what x is. So x equals 4. Okay, a typical exam question, and it's given you a table of values. It says the table shows pairs of values for x and y, and tick the correct statement below. So is y directly proportional to x, or is it directly proportional to x squared or x cubed? And then the second part says write down the formula for y in terms of x. Now, how do we do this question here? Now, I want to try to find what is the relationship going from x to y. Well, if I did 5 times by 100, that gives us 500. But clearly, it does not work for 4, because 4 times by 100 would be 400. So we look for a different method here. Now, if I square the 5, if I did 5 squared, that is 25. And then 25 times by what number? That gives us 500. Okay, so that is 20, and that's 500. Then if I did the same with 4 squared, now 4 squared is 16. Is 16 times by 20 256? Well, it isn't, because 16 times by 2 is 30, so that's 320. So it can't be the y is proportional to x or y is proportional to x squared. Now, if we try cubing these numbers, now 5 cubed is 125, and 125 times by 4, that gives us 500. And if I did 4 cubes, that is 64, and 64 times by 4, that gives us 256. So that means y is proportional to or directly proportional to the x cube value. So you can try different things and then see which one works. Okay, so now we need to do the formula for y in terms of x. So that means y equals k, and it has to have a cube in there because we just worked out that y is directly proportional to the cube of x. Okay, now what is the value for k? Okay, now k was when we multiplied by 4 here and we multiplied by 4, whatever the x cube value was, and it gave us the answers for y in the table. So it will be y equals 4x cubed. Okay, so here is one for you to try. Pause the video, have a go, and then check your solution. Okay, so here is the answer for this question. So if you square the 2 and times by 8, you get 32. If you square the 3, and which is 9, and 9 times 8 is 72. So y is directly proportional to the square of x. And then the formula would be y equals 8x squared.